I can 100% relate to that, because whenever the pandemic hit and gigs just, died a death, we tried to keep the Wrong Kind of Music podcast going.
I remember that, all right, yeah. I remember you saying that to me.
It just got to the point of our podcast is driven by the live music experience. That's what we talk about. We talk about gigs. It was always meant to replicate that conversation that you have in between bands where you're having a beer and you're going, they were good, I like them.
That was such a huge part of your podcast, right?
Yeah, and without that, we just thought, rather than trying to force it and it being unnatural, let's just let it go, And I mean, hats off to you, Richie, for what you've done. I think it's absolutely incredible that you've kept this thing going.
Thanks,
man. I don't think you've missed a week through this whole thing. Always something to talk about, always something to cover. But just the nature of our podcast, we decided, rather than trying to unnaturally push this, let's just let it lay low for a little while, and we'll come back when the time's right,
But there's something strong then about when you do come back. It's like unreal. Like, you might even get more of a push of people listening to it when it does come back. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's almost that return thing. Like,
it's a big thing, because sometimes you kind of get that impression, and I'm sure people in bands get the same thing, that you're just screaming into the void and no one's really listening. And when you get people coming up to you and going, what about the podcast? Are you going to bring the podcast back? It's kind of like, Jesus, someone actually cares. People care about this.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's a big boost, and we'll love to hear it.
I think you're right. I think that's the thing about the Wrong Kind of Music podcast as well, Wayne, because you already have an audience. Maybe you don't even realize that. So you've already reached a level where people are already interested. So and people don't forget. But sometimes I feel that way sometimes as well. When you're at the store, and you kind of forget that people actually do care and they are interested in what you have to do. So people will, your podcast already has a following. So they're not going to forget it. And when you announce it again that it's going to come back, people will be like, "Fuck, that's great." Wayne's doing a thing.
I'll be genuinely excited. I had talked to you even when you were doing it, just saying how much I really enjoyed the podcast. Like, I was very vocal about letting you know, like, just any kind of thing to promote music, if it's good. Like, I mean, if it is genuinely shit, there's only so much helping I can do. Like,
I think the thing that helps us, and I reckon Richie will back me up on this, is I've never done it to help the scene. I've never done it because I thought, I'm going to do this to help bands out. I'm going to do this to help get extra punters at gigs or whatever. We always done it because we enjoyed it. End of story, And I think if you were doing it for any other motive, you're not going to get that sincerity across. No one's going to believe what you're saying unless you're doing it for the right reasons, And we just done it because it was great crack. It was brilliant getting in a room, having a rake of beers, and just talking about the bands that you love going to see.
That's kind of like the forums with us.
Yeah, we make a lot of money off that. It's the only reason that I do it, to be honest.
Those are my favourite of the podcasts you put out. Those are without a doubt my favourites. Yeah. Occasionally, though, you end up with Pete from Ketos, and then it all just goes to shit because 15 minutes into the podcast, you're 8 beers deep, and it doesn't work.
There was actually a few. There was Wayne. I can't even remember what it was, but I went to message you the other day. I think it was actually about the Game Savers podcast, saying that I really enjoyed it, and I was looking at our messages. That Wayne was doing for ages was he'd put the forums on the big TV and just message me play by play, being like, "No, you're wrong. Yeah, no, you're right." And I completely forgot about that, and I was like, "I love that."
When I'm watching the podcast, it almost frustrates me that I can't join in the conversation. I want to have my say as well. Whenever you're saying that this album's not very good, and I'm going, "No, it's good for this reason." And it's the other real strange thing about podcasts. I know we're getting way off topic here, but anyway, I used to listen to That's Not Metal podcast a lot. It was 2 guys called Stephen Hill and Bees. And you almost feel like you get to know the people. You spend so much time listening to them. And I met them at Download one year, and I was sitting chatting away to them, and I caught myself on it. It was like, you're talking to these people like you've been mates for years, and they have no idea who I am. They just met me 15 seconds ago.
I couldn't agree more, to be honest, man. Yeah, couldn't agree more.
It's a weird relationship to have with podcasters. It's very different from watching people on TV or anything like that. It's a very different thing.
Well, I tell you about the first time I met the lads in Grey Stag. I can't even remember which one of them now. I was at Knockin' Stockin', and I was hammered. Like I was in the it was like the Sunday night, and we were in the like artist bar, and I think it was Matthew. Like I just get this like head over that literally comes into me like this and goes, I love the forums. I turned around and I was like, oh, N.Irl. He was like, I'm Grace Sag. And I was like, at the time, I was like, oh, yeah, we've covered your stuff. It's great. And since then, like, sure, the lads are absolute legends. But, you know, little things like that, I'm like, that's fucking just the voice in the side of my ear being like, I love the forums, man.
Yeah, but I mean, in relation to like, okay, so there's a shitload of podcasts out there at the moment, and no more than fucking Spotify with bands. I mean, how the fuck are bands going to release stuff into this fucking void, be it EP or we'll say album, and expect it to be relevant? Like, or, do you know, because I mean, nowadays people just focus in on 2 or 3 songs, and do they just fuck away the rest of it on digital form? Now I'm on about.
I don't know. I think if there's
like, do albums and EPs do they have any value anymore?
I would say they would. Yeah. I would say they definitely would. I mean, like if there's bands now that I wouldn't even really know, but if you're again taking your finger out your arse and fucking emailing, you're sending 100 emails for reviews and for everything, you might get 10 back, you know, but you're posting that you're getting coverage, you're posting that you're doing this, and like, you know, when again, like this is using social media when there's a need for it to push something. And if I'm, you know, just gradually seeing that with the corner of my eye, it might take me a little while if I'd never really heard the band, but I'll just one day just go, do you know what? Fuck it. Like, I'll just go onto Spotify, especially when I'm working, and I'll just play the entire thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, just,
yeah.
But I love that, like that whole finding new bands.
I've had long conversations about this whole, you know, basically playlist versus albums and stuff. And I'll admit, I mean, I'm big into the digital side of things. I just think it's so amazingly convenient way to listen to music. So I'll walk into a room and I'll say, you know, I'll tell my speaker to play Hatebreed or Mastodon or whatever, and it will just play songs by that band in some random order.
Okay.
But when an album drops, for instance, Gojira's new album, I mean, damn right, I'm listening to that album start to finish 10 times before I kind of allow that to be kind of dropped into playlists and pick out my favorite songs from it.
Yeah.
I do think there's a massive importance, and people shouldn't forget the importance.
But that's just you, Wayne, though. I mean,
I agree. There's like when you finish an album, it'll start playing, like, you know, the radio thing where it plays similar things. But Monday mornings in work, first, I don't open, I would say I don't open YouTube or I start working, but the very first thing that I open, look, sure, they know, but the very first thing that I'll do is Discover Weekly, and it's 2.5 hours maybe of my morning, and I'll press play, and like I'll listen to every single song. I'll make a note on my phone, I'll look at it and be like, that's sick. You know, then I'll kind of go on to each band that I thought that's class. Start listening to a full album. If it catches me, I'll download it onto Spotify for the.
Yeah, so but see, Evan, you're a musician. You're a musician.
It doesn't fucking matter if I'm a musician. I love music.
Because I think fucking.
I don't think you have to be able to play music to like it. Like.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that. I would say amongst all of us there that we would definitely follow the album and EP format to all day long, but it's the younger, the teenagers and the 20-somethings are just fucking, they don't see that anymore. I
think there's a difference between a casual metal fan, and to me that's the sort of person that goes to what I would call heavy metal discos to hear Enter Sandman and Linkin Park and Papa Roach and stuff, and then the people that are
wrong with it either. Like,
well, that's what you're into. That's what you're into. You're not doing anyone any harm. Yeah. And then there's people like us who are in the music. You know, we don't just listen to bands. We know the names of every member. You know, we can rhyme off their discography from start to finish. Yeah. And I think even though there's a shift towards this playlist or this, you know, smart speakers where we just tell them to play some music or play some thrash or whatever, I think we still people like me still have an appreciation of an album, a crafted album that they will listen to from start to finish. I don't think that's going anywhere, you know?
I think the album is vitally important. The EP to some extent, but the album is vitally important, because I still think for metalers, you know, especially now with the prevalence of vinyl making a resurgence, you know, we like the physical product, and the physical product is CDs and vinyl, you know, and all the variations therein. But broader than that, it frames a band's time frame in terms of years. You know, it's
100%.
Some of the Seventh Son tour of, you know, Europe that year or whatever, you know, it encompasses everything that you do, you know. So I think it's, you know, or the, you know, the shirts that you'll sell on that tour will be exclusive to this album. So it still frames those 2 to 3 years of a band's lifespan that you know, makes, you know, it's a theme for that particular period in time, and you know, and we still will buy, like, the digital thing. I think is brilliant. I'm a big fan of it, you know, but we still want the physical product. We still want to, you know, go to a gig and buy a shirt of that album and buy that album, you know, in some way, and take it home and have it and look at the artwork and be a part of it. You know, other genres maybe not so much, but I think for still, even the younger rockers, I still think they want a part of it, you know. And like I say, it bookends, you know, periods in a band's cycle. You know, I think maybe being you know, in terms of 10, 15 year cycles of bands, to have 3, 4, 5 albums, you know, you market in that kind of way, and I think it's hugely important. You know,
James, I think you're spot on. Do you think that is just because it's heavy metal and we're heavy metal fans? Would you get that? I don't think you get that fucking dedication in the dance industry, for example.
I think so, yeah. I think
or rap.
You know, I think we broadly embrace the digital thing, but I think metalers still very much like their stuff. You know,
I think within the dance world, you're right. There's less of an interest in albums, and that's because of the way that dance music is played. But I would say stuff
dance
like
music, yes, I'd agree fully.
But I would say stuff like I don't know, hip hop or dub or ska or reggae or
I can't wait for the new Hiatus Coyote, man. Like New Crumb came out, some neo soul stuff.
Yeah, I still think there's a big emphasis on albums, and I think it's for the same reasons. And I think those points that James was making, I never really thought about that. You know, you pick an album and go, that's what Iron Maiden sounded like in 1987, and here's what Iron Maiden sounded like in 1992. You know, you're right. I think that's a great way to think of an album.
Everything they do is kind of in that framework, you know.
Unfortunately, you end up with albums like the Evolution of Music, and you get, you know, periods bookmarked that you maybe don't want to remember. But
even to say, like, Richie, when you sent me the link for this, I was just walking in the door from my 20k run.
10k.
No, I was walking to the shop to get cans, to be honest, if we're going to, because I didn't want anyone to watch me be like
10 minutes, go on.
The only thing the lad runs is around his own head. But like, you know, I literally just sent Richie a screenshot of a band and an album, being like, this is my next recommendation to you. Listen to this album start to finish. It's not just listen to this song. I'm like, Richie, this is my next thing that I'm sending to you. I've done a good job. Listen to this specific album.
But you know, like, you know, the backdrops will be the album cover when you're on tour, and the shirts will be the, you know, album
it's
cover.
It's a huge thing for a band.
Yeah, so, like, you know, like, you know, you said the Evolution of Music, you know, or you can pick a better example maybe, but you know, that'll be that year. You know, you'd have bought a Slayer shirt with that album cover and the tour dates on the back. You know, so and there's your date, you know, in Cork and Belfast and Dublin, and it frames that period of time.
Like in America, James,
as well, that's why it's important.
In America, right, in 2020, 8.8 million vinyls were sold in the first half of 2020, and at Christmas time, they'd never seen sales of vinyls since 1991 in America now. Like that, just fucking tell you, like,
fantastic.
It's almost like
it's on the up, like, and I think that's you know, in any, we've all seen it. Things peak and trough, but right now, you know, I'm a big vinyl head. Like, as a kid, I just loved the vinyl, you know, and I'm delighted to see it make a resurgence. You know, it feels more like you're part of something. You know, you hold this big thing in your hands, and it's got the lyrics and the artwork, and you know, you're more invested in it, and you know what it means, what the message is, and all those things. It's
definitely found myself with all the vinyls that I've bought in the last year. all Irish bands, and it wasn't like a purposeful thing. I was just like, you know, when a lot of the bigger bands, like I might buy a t-shirt for like bigger bands that I love, but it was always just like, oh, they have a vinyl, boom, done. Do you know what I mean? It's something about knowing.
But did you buy the record player yet?
Oh yeah, no, I have it downstairs. I've had it for ages. That wasn't me we were talking about.
That's a good point, though. Evan, I find myself doing that as well. You get more emotionally invested in something.
Because it's a fucking dose to do, like, you know.
Yeah, I think if you know anything about the process as well, my respect, just, for those bands, just rockets, because unless you know them on any kind of personal level, so I definitely get that. I'm more inclined to kind of buy those kind of products and feel and I feel good for it as well. You're part of something.
Honest, that's it. There's a band in Cork, the Love Buzz. They're like
Love Bugs or Buzz?
The Love Buzz, but they're very like 90s kind of grunge pop almost, but they released an EP and I just ordered that on vinyl, but like it's a great album, but like I don't like, not just because they're from Cork or anything, but there's just fucking great tunes, and I think it's green. I didn't even really look. I was like, yeah, cool, green vinyl, not a bother. But like, I wouldn't be someone that would. I don't have a massive collection. I have 24 vinyls, and that's been my entire life. Do you know, like a lot of my friends now are, especially in the band, like avid vinyl collectors. But I don't do that at all.
Are you a purchaser?
Me, I don't buy any physical media anymore. The only time I would is if I'm at a gig, I've had about 12 pints, and it's that whole, gotta support the band. That band was really good. Gotta support the band. So you end up going home with a CD, even though you don't have a CD player.
You put it in your back pocket, you sit down and you break it.
Those ones tend to go in the car. The thing I'm kind of, that I get slightly jealous of people who buy vinyl is, when I listen to music now, it's whenever I'm driving somewhere, or whenever I'm out for a walk, or whenever I'm at work, or doing the dishes. Music is always there, but it's there when I'm doing other stuff. I like the idea of sitting down with a record, putting a record on, and literally doing nothing else.
It's not subconscious listening, like
just homing in and listening to the record properly.
That's a huge thing, yeah.
It's something I don't do nearly enough anymore, and I really should. Because as a kid, I used to do it as a kid, especially I used to get like Iron Maiden, and they were like gatefold, and you had that artwork by Derek Riggs. Yeah. And literally, there was enough detail in those paintings
to keep you occupied,
that you could look at the artwork for the entire 50 minutes of the album. And I kind of miss that experience. I'd really like that again. I think there is a wee part of me that whenever I get a bigger home and a bit more space, I think I might jump on the vinyl bandwagon and start.
Well, to be honest,
equally as valid though, because I think ultimately it's still supporting the artist to some extent. No matter what you do. Like I'm a big fan of Spotify, because I think. I know it has its detractors, but I think, it's a tool like everything else, and it's a way of getting the music out there, and spreading the message. So I think it's a tool to be used in that way, the way that you're talking about, Wayne, it's something that is an ever-present thing. And, and getting blocked going to gig and buy a CD, is just as good.
But I mean, when I said...
It's important in every way. It's positive,
But like when I said to you there that like 8.8 million vinyl records sold across America in the first 6 months, in September 2020, there was an incredible 400 million people paid up to subscribe to stream music. 400 million, like. Yeah. So like that's said here, I have figures here, estimates put today's music streaming market at over 20 billion.
Well, I'll say this here. I haven't bought phone credit in a year at least. I only use, like, my phone is a piece of fucking shit. It's busted up. The only thing, I don't have Wi-Fi on the go. I'll have to ask someone for their, because I have a horrible attention span that I'll just kind of, but I have Spotify specifically for when I go for a walk or when I go for a run. Like I'm saying, that I'll find bands that day. I'll get there, listen to their, download the album, and I'll do the walk test, where I feel like, again, Wayne, what you're saying is to not have it's subconscious, like enough that you're, you know, if you're working or doing the dishes, excuse me, or anything else, that's subconscious. But I feel like when you're walking or running, it's like that's the only thing in my head. So it's like I kind of filter things down to get to that level. Yeah. And then when I go for the walk or the run, it's like I am in that album. Like, you know, like I'm either playing that album live myself or I'm at a gig watching that, but it's, you know, like that thing is not lost on me. I really do see why so many people are going to streaming services.
Yeah, but I mean, we were on about Iron Maiden. Who were Iron Maiden? Was that record label? EMI, was it? Record label.
Yeah, EMI.
Yeah. EMI, yeah. So, I mean, you look at the likes of fucking Universal now, they're, instead of what they're getting per album, you know, sales, they're getting now per month of downloads and streams. It's fucking crazy.
It is shit. It's for... You know? It's fucking it's shit. Like
the one I keep looking at, and I tend to use Apple Music as an example because I think what they pay out is just considerably healthier than Spotify. Spotify really is quite scummy. So basically, it's a cent for every stream that Apple will give you. So if you put in a 10 track album, and a fan listens to it 10 times, that's $1. Okay, if you release a physical album, it's usually sold for about $10 and the band gets $1. So all a fan needs to do is listen to that album more than 10 times on digital, and they're contributing more by digital than they are by physical, if that makes any sense. I know that no one came here for Ma's homework.
No, absolutely. But I guess, but in going with that, do you remember that thing that a band, Wolfpack, did? They released, this is like the perfect way to cheat the system. So what they did was, on Spotify, they released an album called Sleep. Okay, so each song was 10 seconds of silence, and what they did was they asked everyone, like all the fans around the world, listen to this on repeat when you go to sleep. Okay, so people were doing that, and they would book the tours of where that album was listened to most, and they used the funding from getting that. The album was taken off after a while, but they were like, look, we know this isn't going to last, but you know, they were like going off to places they'd never played before because these are the people not only listening to their actual songs, but going as far ahead to go to sleep and put on this silent album on repeat, knowing they're going to get money. And this is show, because you can tell on Spotify where people are listening to your music the most, and they just booked the tour around that, the Sleep tour. Unreal.
I've done it before. I've set the volume to my HomePod like really, really low and just said, you know, play The Crawling, and walked out of the room and just let these songs loop around and, you know, let those bands get a little bit more, you know, income, as little as it is. You know, I think it's like there's ways to help out.
You know, it's like, you know, it's a tool. You know, so you
absolutely.
Do that in conjunction with everything else. You know, I think it depends on what you want out of it. You know, if it's your career and you're living, you know, pays your mortgage, you're obviously going to be threatened by, you know, or concerned by, you know, the lack of income.
Yeah.
But for bands at our level, you know, it's another tool, like, and it can be used in a positive way, like we're saying, you know.
I think a lot of people,
bands at our level, the biggest revenue stream is touring. You know.
Yeah. So
not even. You're not really getting that much. It's probably going to cost you more than, you know. There's a level that it's like you're not you're not going to fund too much unless you're smart with it.
I know you get to crawling down to Cork and they bring their T-shirts, they bring their CDs. Inevitably, they'll be fucking all bought, man.
Definitely, yeah. But that's usually just put back in the like. People aren't going to make a living.
No, of course they won't.
Okay, cool. Then,
no, I'm just on about their merchandise.
It takes the sting out of your cost.
I think like that whole the whole T-shirt thing.
That's all we can hope for. You know, that's like I'd be delighted. You know, if 100 quid is made or 200 quid is made off, you know, various sales or at Spotify and shirts.
Put that into the next thing then.
Yeah, so 200 quid off your ferry. You know, to get you know it's like, you know what I mean. So you balance one against the other. It's a reasonable cost. Like I say, if you're Black Sabbath, you know, you're more concerned. You know, but, you know, and it might be a negative thing, but at this level, it's spreading the word. You know, it's the next thing. You know, your Spotify streams are high in York, so you go and play York. So it's a tool that can be used in a positive way. I think
a lot of people have a very binary approach to this sort of things, where what's best, physical or digital. And I think the truth of the matter in many of these arguments is it's not one or the other. It's using both. It's using the strengths of both and taking the benefits of both.
Which again harks back to framing your time with your album, no matter how you release it. You're creating something beyond just the music. You're creating the whatever the album's called, or whatever you decide to call it, or the design of it. It's the artwork. It's the investment in every level. Of that, and whatever way you choose to release it, and like you say, it should be across all the formats. It's you spread it as far and wide as you can. It's the best way of creating something bigger than just the music.
It will, because it will get the people that I call the lazy listeners, because you're bound to fucking hit one of them if you're going to spread it over vinyl, cassette, fucking digital. There'll always be different people. Like, a lot of people are just so fucking lazy, unless you fucking land it on their laps somehow, they'll eventually buy it,
Like the guys that are like constantly asking, like, oh, when and
these are the people that don't fucking go to gigs either,
This is what I'm saying. The lads that, like, you'd be sitting having a pint, it's like, you only know him even in a band because you've seen me post one thing. You don't even like the post. You've never bought a t-shirt, and you're like, oh man, I can't wait for it to come out. I don't even think you know the name of my band. Like, I think you're getting me mixed up with someone else. Like,
whenever I was in a band, I remember I had like a bunch of friends, and like so many of my friends aren't into metal whatsoever. And I said to them at the very start, I said, I'm asking you to come to one gig, and I will never ask you to come a gig. Come to our debut gig, just stand there with a beer, I don't care, and I'll never ask you to come again. And that's all the support I wanted from them. Beyond that, I only wanted people to come and see us because they enjoyed coming to see us. I never wanted someone to be at a Defied show out of guilt or obligation. I don't think music should be that. I would rather play to 10 people that were interested than 50 people that weren't.
Yeah, it's crazy to think though that, say, again, like social media, I'll post up something that we announce, like it's on the worn out actual socials, it'll get its right seen to or whatever. But when I post it on my own, I'll get something decent. But I'll put up a picture of my dog sleeping and bling, 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 bling. Do you know what I mean? I want to get a tiny little worn out t-shirt for her, put that up, and I'm sure it'll go viral. Like,
this is the future of band promotion.
This is the future of bands. Like, just get a fucking pet.
And that sums it up for me, because the music, metal music magazines, God be with the days, man. They're fucking long gone now as well, man.
Yeah, I think you're just getting quotes now. Like, you just need quotes for an EPK. It does help. Like, when bands send me stuff when I'm booking gigs, as fickle or whatever it is, but like, you might be skimming through an EPK, and James, I know you might understand this. You'd see a well done EPK, you might see something decent like from Kerrang, and there's a little part of me that's like, all right, pay a little, okay, we'll see what the story is with this. And then you might get other emails that are just like, do you have any gigs in, can I have a gig? Like, and you're like, and then the next email is, sorry, I forgot to attach the song. And then the next email is the song. And you're like, this better be fucking sick.
Too many to mention, my friend.
Yeah.
That reminds me of the email the guys from Siege got. They got something along the lines.
Oh, that was on John.
Next Siege,
what was it? Next Siege
or something.
Yeah, that was unreal. Jeez, we had that got some leverage. Like, we were going on about that for ages. Like,
come on, give us maybe a few examples, James, that stand out.
Yeah,
I couldn't possibly do that.
For fuck's sake, you don't have to name the bands, man.
You don't have to name the bands.
You don't have to name the bands, but like one or two particular ones you just went, what the fuck?
Because the one John sent was fucking, that's legendary now. Like,
well, nothing specific springs to mind, but there's been a lot of, can I have a gig? So it is when, here's my band, they are called, You know, a little bit of punctuation, lads, goes a long way. You know, if you what's up?
Watch now. He'll take one out and just like, this one. This is from me. And then there's this dickhead, like,
Sometimes it doesn't even have to be that, you know, complicated or even that, you know, descriptive. Sometimes all it just takes is, you know,
getting the point across.
Yeah, a few basics, you know, just a few links even, you know, just like give us a gig mate what it is. That's not going to fly with anybody. Like I like to support as much as I can, but you got to give me something to work with as well. You know, there are,
of course, yeah.
You know,
like even
basic.
I've said this 100 times. If you want the gig, go to gigs. You know, I know fine rightly that if there's a promoter and he sees some punter at all the gigs that he's putting on, and then that punter comes up to him and goes, you know, I've got a band and we wouldn't mind playing something like this.
Yeah, that's great for starting off, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
There's a big
I can't thing with that. By going to every gig and then being like, can I be broke? Like,
remember that in Evan, when we had gigs in Cork, there was a lot of bands didn't fucking bother their whole showing up to other bands' gigs. It was really pissed.
I'm just going to say this now for any bands that I put on in the future and have put in the past, and if you're listening to it and you've done this, I have seen it and I am aware that they've done it and I don't like it, but I'm not going to be like, everything's fine. It's a fucking dick move. But going downstairs, drinking all your fucking pints, coming up, playing your gig, and then going downstairs again to drink pints and having no interest whatsoever any of the other bands playing, and then make out that you're part of like a fucking scene, or you're trying to like push things or really give a shit.
There was a band came and played Belfast. It was James that booked them, a band called I Kill You from New York, and they played the Limelight and they watched every single support band.
I love that, man. And
they
I
came
noticed
up and they talked to us, and they were like, straight off the bat to us, your influence is this band, this band, and this band. And we were like, yep, you know, because they properly paid attention.
Little things like that, man. Yeah.
Then when they went back, they uploaded a video to YouTube where they thanked, and they'd done like 30 dates across UK and Europe, and they thanked every single support band by name. You know, and it was, to me, that was just, that's what this is about. This is what this should be about. You know,
Scottish band.
Not sitting in the green room kind of being too cool to stand and watch a band or whatever, you know, just
100% agree. It's the life, but you know, you have to engage on some level, you know, and if you want to be a part of something, actually be a part of it.
Yeah.
And engage and talk to people, you know, and you never know, you know, you'll enjoy it. You know, like what's not to like? I love watching bands. You know, what's not to like about standing with a beer and watching a band? It's brilliant. You know, and you know, I as people that are involved in the scene, like, you know, the difficulties involved sometimes. But you know, okay, load your amp afterwards, or once your kit's packed away, it's fine. Just get involved. You know, the bands appreciate it so much. Like,
they do, but the other thing to add to that is, the other side of it is, I do understand if you're getting a band down that's in the middle of a fucking massive tour. Some, like, you know, situations like that, if the band literally just needs to go upstairs and relax a little bit, you know, come and go a bit. But like at the end of the day, they have 14, 15 gigs in 2 days ahead of them, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, I like there's
no, I'm specifically on about the local scene.
Okay, well, if we're talking about like different. Local scene, there's that band, and it's definitely because I'm an idiot, but from Scotland, the lads, long name, I had them
Razor Sharp Death
Blizzard. Absolute
Shout out
legend.
to Jamie and the boys. They're fucking unbelievable.
Jamie Clark, absolute legend. They are the perfect example of, you know, we played with our first gig with Alex. Actually, we played with them at Urban Assault, and he came up to us being like, "Yeah, man!" Like, he started naming out all the tunes. We're like, "Yeah, I saw videos of this gig he played, and I saw this," and I was like, "Fuck!" I think they're such a great band. Even if I, like, you know, it's one of those things that they're just so into our scene. Like, but I consider them part of our scene as well.
There's a reason why I have their CD.
We had them on 2 gigs.
I have their fucking vinyl. I have their long fucking sleeve fucking t-shirts. There's a fucking reason. We played with them a few times now. Yeah, they were the tour that got the long tour that we had for April. The April one for when it all started. We had them on 2 gigs, I think, and that was just Jamie being like, "Hey, we're actually over," and I think they were with They were trying to figure out dates with Black Shuck. Black Shuck, yeah.
Yeah, so he just, again, he messaged me being like, we're trying to fill dates and we see you're doing a tour. And I was like, just jump on our tour for those dates. Let's just make it all fucking link up. Do you know what I mean? Like, why would I be like, oh, you're going to be playing a gig around the same time? Like, no, fuck that, man. It's like, yeah, you jump on 2 dates of our tour. Like, fair, I hope that makes everything easier for you. And he was like, yeah, that's perfect. Within an hour, had them on the Dublin gig. And there was another gig, I think, I can't remember what it is now. But, you know, just something simple like that, being like, yeah, of course. Why would I not want to? Yeah.
There's certain bands like that you just hope that people will fucking just go and see them because, you know, they made the effort.
Well. If I can hang out with you in a sound check.
Yeah, it's that simple as well. You know, just being a part of something and being enthused and involved, and you know, if you're approachable and amenable and supportive, you know, good things will happen for you. I mean, you know, we're, as a species, humans are very open and approachable when it comes to, you know, things like that. So it can be just as easy as that. You know, that's a great. I love to hear stuff like that. You know, I love the attitude. You know, I love the openness. It's a great way of.
Like James, you're such an important link for us down south. You know, because
you really are. Yeah, 100%.
You know, fuck's
and
sake,
John would say the same thing. To be honest, John would say the exact same thing. Yeah.
I think it's
great, John. Like, yeah,
great to hear. You know, I'm very flattered actually by that.
Yeah.
And I think the same way about everyone else. I think, you know, people like yourself and John and Richie. You know, it's a great network. It's great to be a part of it. You know, and that's what frustrates me about not being able to do it at the minute, because you know I kind of miss that. You know, that aspect of some of the bands that we've been over and the togetherness of it all. You know, it's. You know,
but in saying that, take that missing thing now in this conversation as more of a drive, rather than being like, fucking, yeah, like, you know, after a conversation like this, being like, how much is just constantly in other people's head, being like, well, fuck it, like, you know, what's the worst that can happen if I do, again, like, to bring it back to the original thing with the Metal to the Masses, it's like, we have something that we're pushing towards. If that doesn't happen then, it's not going to be too far that we're going to have to move it off. It's not like we're talking fucking 2 or 3 years down the line. You know, like this is the point now where people are starting to get buzzed again, being like, because they can see the end of the road, true. You know? So
I think, again, with Wayne being on here, it just kind of, and you talk about Metal to the Masses, like, because I watched all those podcasts that Wayne did, you know, over the last lot of years, and it just really struck me how much, you know, it was, you know, something was starting to happen with it. It became, you know, I felt like that, you know, the wrong kind of music was kind of part of it, you know, with the dissecting the thing afterwards.
Very much so, yeah.
I was hugely interested in that. It became something, you know, and even seeing Wayne now, it just makes me think of, I really do miss that kind of...
The amount of fibres he owes you, like.
Yeah, you know, Wayne and Claire arriving at the shows, what's happening, man, how are you? And what about tonight, here's your voting slip, you know, and that whole, it was, you know, a bit of part of something bigger. It was really cool, man.
But James, but James and Wayne will agree with me, like, that's why we're here. Because
it's not gone anywhere.
Myself and Wayne will do the stuff that you won't get caught up in. James, your purpose is as a promoter, get the bands in and get the fucking vibe going, get all the crowds in, and then the likes of me and Wayne can go,
we'll talk shit about them.
And this is the scene. This is what it's about. This is why you need to support the likes of James. That's why you need to support the fucking bad
reputation. It's an ecosystem.
You see, fucking Paranoid Beast, like.
The thing I love about the podcast format is there's no pretense about it. It's just people having a beer and chatting about it. Now, don't get me wrong. I think there's a place for like journalistic reviews of local gigs and stuff.
Yes.
But sometimes it comes across as a bit of, you know, we entered Voodoo, and you know the rumbling bass as it, you know, set against an encore of drums and stuff. It's a little bit sort of like It's within itself in the style of writing, and it almost seems more concerned about the writing than the actual reviewing of the bands at times.
The aesthetic of the language itself, rather than what it's portraying. You're actually trying to say.
Whereas a podcast, you can just sit there and go, "Here, that band were belter, weren't they? Why do you think they were belter? Yeah. Because the bass was."
It humanizes amazing. The whole thing. It humanizes it.
I think it makes it a lot more natural, and I think I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet or Richie's trumpet over, but I think the sort of feedback you get off this sort of format is way more valuable than like a sort of journalistic review. That's just my opinion.
I'm sure I actually fully agree.
It's more genuine as well. I don't think that's, I mean, it's just, as Wayne says, it's people sitting around having a beer, dissecting, after the fact what happened. And I think that's very endearing. I think that's what I like about it. Like all of those people sitting around having a beer and sort of breaking it down. It was,
we missed it.
Very engaging. Like,
there was one season of Metal to the Masses where we didn't run the podcast, and it just, for me personally anyway, the whole event just didn't seem the same to me, because I mean, it was
an extra outlet for it. Like,
we were standing at the gig, and after the gig we'd all be like, can't wait to talk about this in the podcast, especially with this happened and that happened and the other thing and stuff. I think it created a bit of a buzz, and it just made the whole thing.
I liked it because it was a culture that was starting to spring up around it.
That's so important.
Yeah,
I was always really excited, Wayne, to hear about how the gigs went through your podcast. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I'd message you after every one, just being like, sick. Like, there'd be bands that like you describe, and like what I loved, and like I'll be honest with you, like I kind of brought it to the forums as well, is like, instead of trying to just be like, oh, they were sick, as in like, if someone's going to put something up for review, don't expect to get your dick sucked every fucking time. Do you know what I mean? Not. And to be fair, everyone's been so chill about it, because it's not like if I do, or like, there's been some bands like strangers,
but you can be critical as well.
I'm not going to fucking lie, like, either, you know. But I think ye had such a good, like, just like, this is what I thought, and like, I think Wayne, you as a person, you're very like straight to the point, and kind of like, this is how I think it went, and like, I really admired that, being like, even if that was one of our gigs, because I know there was a gig that we were supposed to do, and I think we were going to do a podcast around the time, but if you were on that and being like, they were good, but there's this things that I'm like, I find that more refreshing than just being like, the lads are sound.
To me, there's two things that come with that. The first is, if you say every band's great, it's no longer
balance.
It's no longer a compliment to say you're great. It's like, Wayne thought we were great, and someone will be like, but Wayne thinks everyone's great. So what's it matter?
Where's the yardstick? Where's how do you measure?
You have to be honest about it.
The level of what's great and what needs work.
Yeah.
See, the other thing was, I had the luxury of taking a step back from that, because it was just fucking. I hate fucking criticizing people. And
you should do a podcast about it.
No, but like, as I said, I just took a step back and had Evan and Danielle and fucking Joe, and we'll call it.
It is hard.
That's great.
It's really
so
hard.
Like,
because say we done a podcast.
I get paranoid, man, after it being like, oh, you dickhead. Like,
say we done a podcast and we were talking about Korn and Deftones and System of a Down and Monolord, for sake of 4 random
100%
bands.
know where you're going with this, and I agree.
We don't have to look those bands in the eye the next gig we go to. We can criticize them and say whatever we want.
We take the music for face value, what we're getting.
But whenever I say that a certain breakdown in a Survivalist song sounds like garbage, I have to walk and stand in a room to them the next day and go, there's that guy. And one thing did happen. We tried, and I've always said this, you have to be honest. And if you don't like a band, just say that you don't like a band. Just don't be a dickhead about it. Don't say that they're a shit band. Say that
this is the worst thing I've ever fucked. No, bollocks. Like,
But we tried to be, as positive as we could while being honest. And we talked about a particular band, and a singer actually left a band based on the feedback that we gave on the podcast. And to me, that's my biggest nightmare. We don't want to discourage anyone from being a band. I totally understand that. Yeah. I don't want anyone to go, I'm not going to be a guitarist anymore because we got shredded on this podcast.
Did it?
Well, it was a girl, and she came to us, and she was actually really thankful. She was kind of like, "Thank you for making me see that this band wasn't for me," sort of thing. It was a very, very strange situation. But it could have been a lot
Don't you
worse.
dare ever review us ever, because we'll all fight to leave first. It's like, no, Wayne said I'm shit.
We don't exist.
We don't. Really positive vibe, wasn't it? That's, I mean,
it was. It was all kind of.
You did a good thing, but you still felt a bit weird about it, So that
it was just kind of an odd situation. But as I say, and Richie, I'm sure you feel the same. We don't do this to discourage anyone. We don't.
Far from it.
To step away from being involved in the scene or live music just because a couple of guys that happen to run a podcast don't like what they do. That should never be the case.
And in fairness, I mean, probably Evan would be the most critical out of them, but I mean, he always will focus on a positive, and that's the way it is. You know what I mean? It's just not to knock anybody. But if it's shit, he'll call it shit, but try and give a constructive criticism to it.
Especially for young bands as well.
Especially young bands. It's a great point, James. Like, the young bands will always make the mistakes, and they'll fucking learn from it, The
thing is, those young bands, that band they're in right now might not be where they end up. I've seen a lot of bands where, 2 or 3 of the members have, been in kind of young, enthusiastic bands that maybe haven't been great, but have been very, great attitude, and then 2 or 3 of them will eventually go on and do something else that as they mature as musicians and as songwriters, so you can't see that progression within the
Joe from Gamma Bomb now would recognize that all day long, wouldn't he?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. All day long. Yeah. Like, I genuinely, like, if I'm saying I don't like a band or a song, like, I'll give a reason, but it's never like, oh, they're shit. But I would love, like, even like every single acoustic song I've ever written, or like all the bands that I used to be in, I'd love that audio playing underneath everything I'm saying, just to be like, don't worry, lads, I'm not pretending I'm anything, like, it's, I can poke enough holes in my own band before you even get a chance. It's like, I'm not impervious either way around, but I think you need to kind of have that thing of being like, it's like, because imagine like fucking starting the band being like, oh, everyone's going to love, this is going to be the one band that nobody's ever going to disagree on. Like, if you can do that, fair play, but it's kind of comes with the nature of not everyone, especially with heavy stuff, Like,
I think everything's a progression. I don't think there are any shit bands. I think there are just bands that are in development. It's progressive.
No, I think they're shit bands.
I know what you're saying. But you got to be, supportive of that. Like
core 10. That's one.
Yeah, here are areas where you might make improvements, and like I said previously, those guys will go on and do other things. The ones that, the ones that are. Take it on board and modify their style, because it's not easy. There's a lot of variables, yourself in writing music and being in bands. So it's like, that's the thing to kind of foster and kind of be, positive about, because
absolutely.
James, was there any one band in particular? Now I'm putting you on the spot. Maybe you can give us maybe 2 or 3, but was there any one band or 2 bands in particular that fucking blew you away from the in relation to the Northern Ireland scene, and you just went, holy shit, these lads are fucking class, and nobody got them. Nobody got them.
Going back down the years, Spindrift and Honey for Christ were 2 bands in the early days that it really struck me as just being, at the time, at the top of their game, both for the energy and, and the enthusiasm. Sky Pilot, who I've had a long relationship with,
They've been going a long time now, haven't they?
20 years next year. So in their early days,
I remember seeing them support, they were supporting Curb Dog at one stage. Was it in Limerick?
I don't think they did support now.
Did they not support Curb Dog? I'll have to check that now. The boys in Chemical Addiction know that for sure.
But then, like more recently, Nomad, as I mentioned before, made a big impression. Overoff, their early shows, consistently actually with them. But to me, it's comes like leaps and bounds. We mentioned Lockhorns earlier on as well. I kind of I knew they would be destined for greater things. So you definitely get that kind of,
But what about the bands then that just disappeared, that you just got so what? How come nobody could get them? Like, is there any of those bands?
Two Glass Eyes.
I think there's been a few. Yeah, I mean, God, nobody springs to mind now. You put me on the spot, but like they're
Mojo Fury. They were a fucking unreal band.
Yeah,
as well.
they were great.
Unreal.
This is going way back, but there used to be a band from Belfast called No Grace Given. I think I only seen them two or three times, and they were outstanding.
What kind of music, Wayne? Was it?
See, honestly, they were about the same whenever I was just getting back into metal, because I went through a wee period of not listening to metal. I got back into it, started going to the local scene. The front man like had a... Now, they went through a couple of frontmen whenever I was into them, but their first guy had a real Henry Rollins vibe to him. You know, big guy.
Oh, yeah.
Well built. And I think it was sort of like somewhere between groove metal and like hardcore punk. But it was great stuff, really crushing stuff, just hard hitting, straight to your face metal music. And
yeah,
I really, really miss them. I wish they had hung about for a little bit longer.
Like you've bands like Axe Catcher. Like, I don't know if you've heard the new single, but fuck me, man, that band is just absolute legends. Like, such nice guys, but they're just. And I've seen them go through. So I remember they were like a 4-piece and like sounded pretty much exactly like Every Time I Die.
Yeah.
Well, I remember like everyone used to call it Every Time I Derry. Like, they were just like, and then to like still have that sound, but like a newer version, but as a fucking 3-piece. Like, when we played in Belfast, they played with us, and I was just like I fucking hate going on after them. Like, I really could just like, I wear that Axe Catcher t-shirt all the time. I listen to them all the time. I love them, and I'm like, I always want to put them on our shows, but every time I'm like,
it's not the Octopus t-shirt, like, is it?
No, the Octopus one is a Baylor one.
I have an Axe Catcher t-shirt with an octopus on it, and I have worn it. It's like falling apart. I wore it that much.
The one I have is like it's like a grey one with like, it's almost like a Hornets one. It's like a grey kind of thing with like someone holding a skull, but it's not the Hornets one. I have another Hornets one like that. That's another band, fucking Hornets. Like that, I have them on vinyl there.
Another Belfast band I would love to see come back is Gacy's Threads.
Oh, they were back in the day.
And the funny thing about Gacy's Threads, the first 3 or 4 times I seen them,
got spiked. Like,
I really disliked them. I really did not like Gacy's Threads to start with. Yeah. And the more I seen them, the more it just started to click, and it was like, these guys are something else. Stephen Curry on drums, without a doubt, one of the best drummers visually to watch. You know, the energy he had.
I love fucking watching drummers.
I remember speaking to him about drumming, and he was telling me that other drummers have told him that he doesn't need to hit the drums so hard, and he doesn't need to go so energetic. Yeah. You know, he can dial it back, and it won't be so exhausting. But he doesn't want it because it's just fun. It's just fun to drum like that.
I've heard that, man. I've heard that. There's a lot of faster things that we're doing now, with like stuff that we're writing. There's faster sections, and I'm like, but there's like to be fair to Alex, is like, you don't have to stand from up here, you know. I'm like, yeah, but I want to.
Anything spring to mind, James?
Well, just to pick on Wayne's about Gacy's, like, I mean, they had a really good go at it as well. You know, like Curry did the label, and they did like toured Europe and that kind of thing too. So Gacy's were, I mean, they were just fast and aggressive, and
they used to play Kilkenny a bit as well. I think
full of enthusiasm. You know, they were you know, great to watch. You know, they really were top of their game. Like,
do you remember Acid Tone?
I remember them well. Yeah, man.
Yeah, Jesus, yeah, Acid Tone. Yeah, they played Download when they were all 16.
Yeah, it was as young as that. Well, they were kids.
Yeah, I found them again a couple of months ago, just being like, because they were on some game, weren't they? They were on like, was it Madden or fucking some sports game anyway, or Need for Speed or something anyway? But Acetone ended up getting at fucking 16. Do you know what I mean? And they came from the kind of the blast beat era, kind of that kind of thing. And I was like, I remember seeing them being like, how the fuck? Because you should have seen the bands I was in at 16. Like I'll never, ever, ever not check myself just because of the shitty bands that I was in. Like, that'll never leave my head. Like, but they were, it's like God alone, like,
yeah,
pricks.
Young fellas.
Yeah, fucking
cleared it up.
Way back at the start called Lodestone.
Oh yeah, dial up, like, that's why I'm not that good.
There's a band called Lodestone from way in the early DP days that were kind of like a sort of stoner rock kind of thing. And this is like sort of 2001, 2002. They were youngsters, and they kind of gave them nowhere. And they were like really talented guys, like really good. You know, that kind of clutch sort of Nebula kind of style. You know, big grooves and big riffs. And
wait a minute, there's another fucking band. This is gonna. They sounded like Alice in Chains. Oh my god, it's gonna kill me now. Kind of like sounded like Alice in Chains kind of thing. I know they were from up north. I'm gonna actually have to I'll literally leave you a message about it now. I remember the lads in Chemical Addiction went to see Down, and these little kids were like hanging out there, handing out their demo in the line, being like, oh yeah, but they were for somewhere up north, and the lads put the CD on, and like the second they got back, they called me and they were like, you need to come listen to this band. And I remember there was like a riff with a wah at the start, but they were fucking sick. I know there was a monkey on the cover. I'll send it to you individually, but these guys were
that might be
incredible. Naya Sky.
Oh yeah.
Naya Sky. Thank God I remember that, because
Jesus, thank God for me not having to edit that out. Jesus Christ.
No, not yet. Naya Sky. Oh my God, man! Have a listen to this band. These guys were so young, and it was like perfect Alice in Chains, like more southerly.
Yeah, I remember. Oh yeah, I think one of them was Arcane. It was a band called Arcane up here for a while.
Yeah. I think one of them moved away or something. But it's crazy to think that I was obsessed with that band. I don't even know who's in it. I just was fucking obsessed with them, and like they have no idea. Do you know what I mean? It's crazy how music can like kind of work like that. But yeah,
Jackal Feud as well. They were kind of
Jackal Feud. Yeah, great band. Yeah,
kind of sort of like bands that kind of burn brightly, but for a short period of time.
Yeah. Some of the drummer from Jackal Feud is in what's the band now? They've been going for a good while. They have a video like in a practice room where it's going around in circles.
Senescence or something like that.
No. They have like 3 guitars.
Is it Molar Bear?
Molar Bear. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he was the drummer was in Jackal Feud, or one of them was there, or some relation to Jackal Feud. Yeah.
I think you're right about that.
Yeah. But anyway, I always loved the northern scene. Like,
let's get back to James, man. You've got gigs coming up for us all. So Bloodstock Metal to the Masters. Let's get back to that. The grand final 2021, Saturday the 10th of July. Elder Druid, Hint. Psyche, how would you pronounce it?
Psychedelic.
Yeah, Pure Sonic Outcast, Rupturation, Citizen, Survivalist, and Victim Royale.
Yep.
That is some fucking lineup, man.
Yeah, I'm excited. I just hope we can do it. I try to stay positive. I think it's a good shout to have something happening that day. I think the lineup's brilliant. I'm one of those bands gets to play Bloodstock. We don't have Simon here, so it's 3 judges, unanimous decision. To pick the winner, but I'm just excited because it'll be the first thing back in a year and a half. On the first metal.
There'll be tears at that, man. There'll be tears at that. It's
if I'm going to be there, I'm going to be fucking crying anyway.
Bawling, yeah.
The way it breaks down, it's going to be emotional.
My divorce will be fucking harsh, but ruthless. So Pure Sonic Outcast, they have an album launch as well on the 7th of August.
Yeah, same kind of thing as well. It's in the limelight. Again, there might be restrictions, but it's, they're one of those bands that have just kept themselves busy. They did those live streams. They've got an album coming out, signed an American label. Good sludgy stoner doom band. Great supporting cast. So yeah, we're again.
Hating so much for the sub. I don't know anything about them.
Yeah.
Am I right in saying that Haint have only played 1 gig?
That was the Metal of Massa last year. Yeah. So album launch.
Again, just one of those shows where everyone's standing there going,
what the fuck?
What?
Yeah.
time signature switches just constantly the whole way through.
Oh, I'm in already.
Like insane musicians, absolutely insane. Like if you think you can headbang to this music, you're wrong. You just can't.
Without a degree, you can't.
Fantastic band to watch. Absolutely fantastic.
Was in Condemned. Stevie Hobson, he's been in loads of bands, so that they've got the pedigree for it as well. So
it's not their first rodeo. Definitely.
Yeah, I was away from that. I was kind of sad to miss him, but obviously I'm in a history with stand-up guy, and I know Ian really well, and I'm excited for that too, just to see what they're going to bring to the table. It's one of those old heads, but with a new approach type of thing.
And a band that have put out some of the most original merch that I've ever seen in my life. They sold band branded wooden spoons.
Do you know what? That's so fucking ridiculous. Will you send me a link for that? I'll get one. I'm not even joking. Like, Wayne, send me one on Facebook. I will 100% buy a wooden spoon from a band because it's so ridiculous. Like, ridiculous.
On about insane time signatures, we can't go past Acid Age and their album launch with Crossfire and Mortal Backlash on what's that? August, isn't it? 21st of August.
Hopefully after Bloodstock. Again, I'm excited about that. I think Acid are brilliant. Crossfire, I'm just really big fans of those guys. They played the Celtic Thrash thing last year. I thought they were excellent. For me, they really stood out that night. So I just think it's a great lineup. Again, it's making events out of these things. These are all kind of launches in some way, or there's an event. Again, we talk about the album thing. This to me feeds into that. With the last two you mentioned, they're both album launches. So even for the DP and for the live shows, it's tied around or themed around a significant release. So it's really exciting.
That Acid Age album is fucking outstanding, man. It's outstanding.
Dude's a genius, man. He's such a talent.
Dude's a fucking dude. All of them are, to be fair now, for a three-piece, they're fucking outstanding.
Yeah, you've been big pushers of them now, to be fair.
Great thing about Acid Age is the growth that you've seen in them, because I've been following those guys from early doors, and I remember one of the first Acid Age shows I went to, you could tell that there was 3 incredibly talented musicians on stage that weren't particularly good at playing with each other. And they've just grown since then. And I mean, they've went through such a journey. They went from a 3-piece right up to a 6-piece, and now they're back down to a 3-piece again. So it's an interesting band. There's a hell of a story there.
Seeing that progression and going along with it as well, there's something about that as well. Like you feel like you're almost part of something.
Definitely, yeah.
So Raven Light, they're playing then Project Genesis, another album launch.
Yeah,
Delusional Silence and the Crux.
Yeah, again, it's the same type of thing. It's framed around. I think with Acid Age and with Raven Light, they've had their albums in the can for so long now, and they want to do something with it. Both albums released sort of last year and within the last few months. So for Raven Light as well, just damn to get out there and do something with it. And I think they're a great band as well, and a bit of an anomaly up here. There's not a lot of gothic metal bands.
That's true. Yeah, very true.
Type thing, so they haven't. They sit in a nice kind of wee niche, and they've got a wee bit of a following as well. And
their video, I can't remember which video it was fucking outstanding.
That's great.
I appreciate that, Richie. I really do.
Was it you?
Yeah.
Was that the green screen? Is that the band, the green screen one that you did? You put up a good few months ago. Now, was it?
No, it was just an empty room with a load of smoke.
Was that a few months ago? Because I remember you posted.
Maybe we're talking about it. Maybe we're not talking about my video.
That's the one I'm thinking of anyway. So there was one that you put up a couple of months ago that I was like,
that's the So On Until the Saints one. The Raven Light one we've done in an empty church hall and just bellowed the place with smoke. Yeah. We ended up getting we set the fire alarm off and had them leave the building and stand outside and wait.
That's class, man. Fair fucks you, Wayne. Cool.
Yeah.
And the last one that I have on the list anyway is Norwegian Punky Stoners, Bokassa.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, with Florence Black in tow as well. So, yeah, again, another interesting one. That's sort of getting into the whole back end of the year touring band type thing. We still hopefully have Orange Goblin in December and Phil Campbell in the as well. So. That's hopefully by that stage we'll be, free of
Bokassa played Slam, is that right, with Metallica?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. They
hell of that. Great band. And Orange Goblin, if you have any interest in any metal whatsoever, and you don't go and see the Goblin, you're mental.
Preaching to the converted, way.
One of the, probably, I would say, one of the best UK metal bands ever. I've never seen a bad show by them. They're fantastic.
Theatrical as fuck too, as well, when they play. Like,
in my head, the ultimate kind of fantasy scenario is that, you know, we end the year on that kind of show. Where for me, it's one of the last ones. You know, at the end of like the most difficult period we've known, you know, to finish off something like Goblin, and to be like the gateway to 2022, and to have them, you know, being at the front of that type of thing, if you know what I mean, in December.
Blacks it off, like,
and it just be like, you know, like it was with them finishing off the year would just be immense. And I
think that night that Orange Goblin plays, just as they're coming to the close of their set, just lock the doors. Don't let anyone else in or out. And we're just partying for the rest of the night with Orange Goblin.
Might me cry at that one.
Party until the next gig.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to end this. James Loveday of the Distortion Project, Wayne Donaldson of The Wrong Kind of Media. Thank you so much for coming on the Metal Cell Podcast. Really appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be on.
See you again soon, boy. Take care.
And Evan, as always, thank you so much for jumping in at the last minute. Fair play to you.
Not a bother, but I have no life whatsoever, so.
So crucially, James named out all those gigs. If you're up in Northern Ireland, or if you want to fucking travel from the south of Ireland to get up there, you have the dates, man. Support your local metal scene, and we name checked a shitload of bands tonight. So just fucking keep
check them out, like,
and fucking support.
That means a lot. It's good to see everyone.
Fantastic metal scene on this island. Thanks, lads.
100%, man.
Take care.
Cool. Okay.